Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good, excellent. Well, I'm not going to stand up here too long because I want to turn the microphone over to the chairwoman of the PCPID, Julie Petty, who's going to describe and go through the first points that we have regarding the report and our PowerPoint presentation, and then she's going to hand it over to MJ for him to go through the second half. So I'm going to turn it over to Chairwoman Petty and have her discuss our report. So thank you very much, Ms. Petty.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Bishop. So if you don't know much about the President Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities, we write a report every year to the President on what we feel is important and crucial to the quality of lives for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. From now on, I'm just gonna say IDD because it's not as much as a mouthful. I really want to say before I go on that this was really a joint effort. It really took all of us. It took MJ, who is our staff person at the committee. It took all of the members. We all worked together to really decide what we wanted to do. And then we heard from experts in the field of technology. So, our report is titled, Leveling the Playing Field, Improving Technology and Design for People with Intellectual Disabilities. So the goals of the report, number one, was to increase the cognitive accessibility of technology that is a part of the fabric of everyday lives and to strengthen federal policies to ensure that people with ID have equal access to everyday technology. The second part of our goal was to increase the availability, quality, and affordability of cognitive support technologies through policies, practices, development, and research. And I think you heard that from the previous panel today, that affordability and accessibility is really important. So the four focus areas that we decided on under technology is elementary, secondary, and post-secondary education, community living, employment, economic well-being, and health and wellness. So, like I said, it was really a committee effort, and our committee member, Lisa Pugh and Dan Beam and many others helped come up with the definition of technology. Lisa, I love these wordles. You can do a wordle with anything, right? So, the definition we came up with, the use of advances in science to support people in society, to reduce barriers, and to make the everyday world more accessible. So, okay, so we have overarching recommendations, and then we have recommendations in every area that MJ is going to tell you about. The overarching recommendation, and I might need your help with this. I might need a break. Recognize and affirm the equal rights of people with cognitive disabilities to technology and information. Basically, the Declaration of Rights that I think you have it in your packet, among other things. Number 2, adopt and incorporate into federal statute, policy, and recommended practice definitions. So these are the definitions that we recommend. I'm not gonna read them to you. You can see them. Number 3 was to ensure that technology, again, is accessible, affordable, and widely available to people with IDD who can benefit from it at home, in their communities, and at work. So, number 4 overarching recommendation was direct the U.S. Department of Ed, Office of Civil Rights, to revisit the definitions of the terms otherwise qualified related to eligibility for accommodation under Section 504 of the Rehab Act and the ADA. The emerging benefits of supportive assistive also prosthetic technology, offer a significant extension of the individual capabilities that were unavailable when these statutes were drafted. So basically, in my opinion, that means include technology in the laws, because when they were written, technology wasn't what it is today. So number 5, amend the functions of the U.S. Access Board to develop data standards to facilitate promotion of cognitive design and guidelines, incorporating solutions that include the use of cognitive accessibility technologies in businesses, communities, and the federal government. Number 6, to ensure federal agencies interpret Section 508 of the Rehab Act in a manner that creates cognitively accessible pathways to information, policies, and programs that are useful and available. Number 7, direct the U.S. Department of Justice to enforce the ADA so that the public and private entity services and programs that are available through electronic technology are readily accessible to people with IDM. Now I'm going to ask the commissioner to finish the rest.
And so before I finish these, as you can tell, since they're quite broad in scope, even though we're talking about the U.S. Department of Education taking action, considering we're looking at 504, that has implications across multiple agencies, not just the Department of Education, and the same thing regarding the last one, which was with the Department of Justice. So they didn't fit neatly into any particular box, which is why we suggested, or the committee suggested, that we break out these 10 recommendations so that they were overarching in nature. So number 8 is promoting continued research and development funding and longitudinal testing of newly cognitive accessible technologies, including speech-to-text technologies, as an example, that increase the independence of people with ID. We request creation of a research agenda through the demonstration projects of NIDLR, which is now known as, and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, otherwise known as CMS. Number 9 is direct the U.S. Department of Education, this is one I read earlier, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to provide funding opportunities for the creation and support of an open access site, i.e. a repository of resources including codes, containing resources for developing accessible information and materials for people with cognitive disabilities. And 10, again, one that was provided earlier as well, create federal incentives such as tax credits for the private sector to develop cognitively accessible technologies.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you, RM. It's an honor to be here with you today, and I'm so excited to share a synopsis of the PCPID 2015 report to the President, along with a series of recommendations shared with the President this past Friday. According to the U.S. Department of Education, in 2014, only 17% of K-12 students with ID were included in general classrooms, despite extensive research showing that the students with disabilities who are included in general education have better academic success, especially in post-secondary education and in social and employment outcomes. For example, a 2013 research study showed that time spent in the general education curriculum is positively correlated with math and reading achievement for students with disabilities. Another study conducted in 2014 showed that students with ID who were fully included in general education classrooms made more progress in literacy skills compared to students served in special schools. Moreover, PCPID members realized that unfortunately most instructional materials are not being designed from the outset to incorporate accessibility for all students. This creates barriers to inclusion and grade level readings. Some of the other barriers that determined by the committee were lack of financial incentives for commercial producers and educational materials, lack of awareness, and that can be at various levels: school, family, policymaker, college, and other groups. The next barrier was under copyright law, individuals with ID do not qualify under the definition of individuals with a print disability. The education section of the PCPID 2015 report to the President states that technology can make educational material accessible to students with ID, support these students in both learning and testing environments, provide them the accommodations they need to benefit from their general education classroom, and finally, prepare them for post-secondary education challenges. Therefore, the committee, and these questions actually came from the self-advocate members of the committee. They came up with a series of questions. Two of the most important questions under the elementary, secondary, and post-secondary education was, how can technology be used more effectively to make educational materials and the general education classroom accessible to a student with ID? And how can accessibility tools developed in K-12 environment be used in post-secondary education environments? Since the report is geared toward federal policies and federal agencies, there were 25 recommendations that came out from the committee. Unfortunately, we do not have the time to go through all the 25 recommendations, but I will be more than happy to touch on some of these recommendations. First is that offices responsible for Elementary and Secondary Education Act, Individuals with Disabilities Act, Higher Education Opportunity Act, and other federal programs are encouraged to use or require accessibility in all educational technology they support. These offices and other federal laws should include accessibility requirement in any online learning tools that they support for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The U.S. Department of Education should issue guidance recommending that educational curricula purchased by a school, this is kindergarten through higher education, meet industry standards for accessibility, including cognitive accessibility. The next area or focus area of the report was on, actually, let me give you two more recommendations on the post-secondary education and education section, and we will move to community living section. The other recommendation was that federal offices should support improvement in copyright law and practice whenever possible so that people with ID can access free electronic books for individuals with print disabilities. The 2015 report to the president is going to be published in an ebook format by the end of this month, and we had the pleasure of working with Benetech and Bookshare to make it available and possible for people with disabilities. And finally, the US should ratify the Marrakesh Treaty. As you know, this treaty will allow sharing of accessible material for use by members of beneficiary groups across international levels or across international borders, thus increasing the number and supplies of material accessible to persons with disability. We also asking the Department of Education to offer data and other support toward achieving the goal of this ratification. Moving forward with the next slide. Okay. Technology can leverage the capacity of individuals with ID to experience a life or full life of independence in their communities, and it can improve communication and relationship buildings while enhancing personal safety. Technology can assist with connectivity to jobs, health services, housing, places of worship, transportation, and other facets of daily life. New technological applications frequently enter the marketplace, offering life-enhancing options for millions of Americans. Making these options available to people with ID, however, require research and funding to ensure that the designs are accessible. PCPID members believe that the inability to keep pace with the technological advances of everyday living continues to distance people with ID from the rest of the population. Research and accessible product design can help close this gap. So the question that came up throughout the meetings of the committee was, how can the requisite research and funding be required to achieve advances in accessible technologies that will result in greater independent living options and full citizenship benefits and rights for people with ID? The three key recommendations were, first, CMS should consider whether states are utilizing technology to improve and expand access to integrated community living as one aspect of setting compliance analysis under the HCBS regulation. Federal agencies should research, fund, and create more technology apps which expand the independence and participation of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in everyday living situation. And let me give you a prime example of how that can be happening or how can be achieved. The Department of Housing and Urban Development created a new housing counseling mobile app recently that allows a smartphone and tablet users to locate housing counselors in their own area. HUD also unveiled the first housing discrimination mobile application for iPhone and iPad in 2013 and made it available on Android smart devices in 2015. Finally, federal agencies should incentivize product developers to design software that is highly visual and customizable with verbal and non-verbal cues, and that continues real-time pictures and videos to orient and engage users with intellectual disabilities. And with that, I'm going to show you a 5-minute video to see how that can happen. And PCPID roles is not to endorse any product or person or organization. This video is widely available through YouTube channel. So if you can play that video, I would greatly appreciate.
Whatever disability you have, all the individuals have the same desire and the same goals. They want to grow up, they want to get a job, they want a house of their own, they want friends and relationships, they want time spent out in the community.
The TeachMate platform was created in order to allow individuals with special needs to become more independent by allowing those who care for them to create the specific content that they need based on their own environments, their own life experiences, whether that be anything from communicating with peers in a classroom to traveling to work to carrying out work is just so important for these individuals to be included in the rest of the community.
They've been told most of their life that they can't travel on their own. And with TravelMate, they are proving that wrong. TeachMate 365 is a software platform that we built this specific tool that we use called the TravelMate curriculum. You can go out with the individual as a trainer or a family member, and you can take a picture. For instance, the third step is waiting at the bus stop. You take a picture of your family member sitting in their bus stop. So when they are confused as to where to be, they look at the picture and they see exactly where they need to be. Each scene has embedded in red and yellow an emergency help button, and you can customize it specifically to your individual. For this particular individual, Annie, we knew that if she got anxious or she missed her stop, she would get to, even though she's verbal, she would become nonverbal because she would be too anxious. So we were saying the words for her. So for instance, it says,
Hi, if Annie is showing you this picture on her screen on her iPad, please call the number on the screen and I will help you get her oriented and back where she needs to be. Thank you so much.
with the GPS, you can set it up so that it automatically, you get to the end of your travel trip and you go into the door of your job, it automatically brings up your job, TeachMate 365, and it starts telling you what to do at your job. So you have the check marks of hang up your coat, punch your time card, go sit at your desk, say hello to your friends. It walks you through all the steps you need to do to start your job. We have a bus ride, we have a train ride, we're in the middle of creating a plane trip. We're going to have an Uber and a taxi trip. So any way that they want to get around, they can hit that trip and off they go.
My name is Ben Kim. I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but lived in this area for roughly 18 years, and I'm currently 18 years old. I'm going to be 19 next month.
Today we're going to do a repeat, and we provided a lot of assistance last week in using the app and getting him set up, and today he's going to demonstrate that back to us.
On my iPad, all I got to do is go on AutismMate, and there's another story thing called TravelMate. Grab my wallet. It's me. I record my voice. Get my phone. Don't forget my phone. I need my Smart Trip card and my Bank of America card. I have to bring my Smart Trip card with me, as well as my debit card in case the amount of my Smart Trip card is low. I can also take my phone in case someone wants to call me.
Ben picked up TravelMate very easily. He enjoys electronics, so I believe that it being an application on the iPad is very helpful for him.
The safety features are important for every single person I've used this app with. The reminders, in addition to having the visual component of a photo or video, taps into exactly what they see. So it spurs that thought right on. Rather than learning an icon and a picture and what that might mean, they see it right on.
The TeachMate platform is so easy to use. It was really built with the parents and educators in mind that anyone, siblings, can really create this content to get involved in the student's education and really promote independence in their life.
In the past, repetition was a requirement for learning, doing the task over and over again and doing it in a variety of environments. That's not practical, and both financially as well as time-wise. And so we have been able to change this by giving homework. They have access to it all the time as an app, so they have the resources right in front of them, and they can repeat it on their own without someone else next to them.
moving forward, I want to use it by doing other stuff I need to do to practice independently, so I could practice having a good life and becoming a good adult in the future. Using my iPad could help me because I can use Autismate for any purpose.
The TravelMate project that was created using our TeachMate platform is just a great example of the many ways that it can be used to teach traveling skills, job skills. We see so many people building different projects and using it for different purposes, everywhere from the classroom to home environments, and really enabling independence in so many ways.
TeachMate 365 and TravelMate curriculum, in a nutshell, means to me as a therapist, functional independence for people of all ages.
So before MJ continues, what I wanted to bring up quickly is that, again, PCPID is not here to endorse any particular product, but what apps such as this and others can do is, think about all of the person power that it takes right now through job coaching, which is either paid for by vocational rehabilitation, supported employment through HCBS waivers, how that time can be reduced and savings can be had. And so what we need to start thinking about doing is, how can we take things like this, show savings, and then take that information to Congress so that they understand that by putting minimal investments into technology, how can we be saving multiple systems money while at the same time providing individuals greater access. So we're talking about liberation for the individual, we're talking about liberation for systems. I think the word to use is liberations, but I'm gonna turn it back over to MJ since we're down to 3 minutes.
Thanks, Aaron. For most Americans, employment is an important part of economic well-being, and for people with ID in particular, working also has many benefits that go beyond the money they earn. It contributes to their self-confidence and independence and connects them to their communities by fostering inclusion and social interactions. PCPID members believe technology can be a great asset for competitive employment and successful performance possible for people with ID. It can allow for the adoption of workplace environments, processes, functions, equipment, and supports that make it possible for people with ID to be productive. However, financial and somewhat attitudinal barriers still exist in promoting technologies that can assist individuals with ID to obtain and, most importantly, maintain meaningful employment. Some other barriers that were identified by the committee was accessible design or lack of accessible design, lack of knowledgeable employees and human resources staff, digital literacy, or how to use technology in general, and lack of affordable and available technologies. The question in this area was, how can people with ID obtain and more effectively use technology in employment and to ensure their economic well-being? And how can federal agencies incentivize the technology industry to employers to develop, promote, and use accessible technologies that increase employment opportunities and on-the-job success for people with ID? The committee suggests that the Department of Education and Department of Health and Human Services provide guidance on the inclusion of mainstream accessible information and communication technologies in the definition of assistive technologies in federal educational and vocational rehab policies. Department of Education and NIDLR can partner and can provide additional information and resources to the state vocational rehabilitation programs on the use of technology and related technology services as part of IEPs. I have to mention that in the back of our 2015 report, we do have about 5 or 6 pages that provide information on additional technological resources to people with ID as well as their families. Next recommendation is that NIDLR and the U.S. Department of Labor should continue funding research that specifically focuses on the use of technology to increase competitive integrated employment outcomes for youth and adults with ID. So I've been instructed that I need to go to the next slides.
Go to health and wellness.
Okay.
Yeah, go.
To ensure that people with ID receive the full range of healthcare benefits available to all U.S. citizens through the Affordable Care Act, increased access to technology and new technological advances are needed. The ACA, the Public Policy Foundation for Healthcare, ensures that individuals with pre-existing condition can no longer be excluded from coverage by health insurers. The committee believes that access to technology and the development of new technologies are also needed to support and expand possibilities for people with ID to participate in their own healthcare, health maintenance, and wellness. Technology can facilitate many elements of coordination between people with ID, their long-term support providers, and healthcare professionals, as well as product developers. So the question is, how can product developers, researchers, funders, and others use widely available technologies as a resource to increase the involvement of people with ID in their own healthcare and healthcare decision-making? And three of the recommendations are one is towards CMS, and committee is asking CMS that as a part of review and approval processes, CMS should allow states to fund personal and mainstream technologies. This includes mobile devices that can optimize participation of people with ID in their own healthcare and wellness. Technology should be used for ongoing training and healthcare professionals to increase their skills, knowledge, and understanding of people with ID, and this is about cultural sensitivity, diversity, and cultural competencies. And finally, electronic records should be promoted and shared between healthcare system and programs, furnishing long-term services and supports to improve care for individuals with ID and to provide longitudinal data for systems and planning. And with that, I'm going to turn the podium back to Julie for any question that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, MJ. I have to say, MJ has worked so hard. I really appreciate all your support.